It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That's a brand new song called A Game. The name of the band is also going to be new to you. It's Spirits of Fire. But the guy on the line is not going to be new to you. He is the guitarist of Spirits of Fire and, I don't know, 3, maybe 4, maybe more bands that you've heard of in the past. It is the legendary guitarist himself. It is Chris Caffery. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm looking at this crazy weather out here. It was 0 degrees a day ago, and now it's 50 with the huge snow banks with fog above them outside my house. It's just been a weird weather, but winter, but I'm doing good.
Isn't it weird? I know I'm in Cleveland, obviously, and we had the same thing. Yeah. It was like 60 last Wednesday, and then a foot of snow dropped in like a day. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, we had, like I said, we were down at 0 and below 0, and now all of a sudden it's 50 and it's raining like crazy. And it's a mess. It's the biggest pain in the butt trying to take my dog out on it. He doesn't know what to do or where to go.
Right. Well, at least you're not out on the road with like TSO or something right now where it could be a real pain in the ass, right?
Actually, well, this year with TSO was the first year, I know for me, I don't think it's ever happened other than this one particular show where we couldn't play the show that day because of the snow in the Carolinas, which oddly enough, in more than anywhere, we were playing in Greensboro, Carolina on a Sunday, and that particular night before a storm hit when we were in Charlotte, and we pulled into Greensboro, and I looked out my window at 7 in the morning and saw 10 inches of snow, and I said, I don't think we're playing today. And they moved it to the Tuesday, the 2 shows then. But I think there was one other time on the Beethoven's Last Night tour when a tornado hit one of the cities that we were about to go to and killed the power, and we had to move that show till the very end of the tour we could fit it on to the schedule. But that one snow thing was the first time that our tour was ever, I think, stopped from the weather for a day.
Jeez, that's amazing when you consider that it is a winter tour every year. You know,
exactly, and it's gone on for 20 years, so we were pretty fortunate to make it that far. And thank God everybody was, nobody got any kind of car accidents. Everybody was able to come and see us that could, and it was just crazy, especially being where it was. I mean, it was snowing more in the Carolinas than it did in New York.
Jeez, that is nuts. Well, I know one place it's not snowing is in the studio of Spirits of Fire. What a great record, man. It is so, as you can probably imagine, I get 1,000,005 records a year, and all of them say, well, if you like this and you like that, then you'll like this. And yours, whoever wrote your press release did a great job because they basically said exactly what it is, which is if you like the 4 main bands that these guys have been in, then you will like this record. And that is about as dead on a description as I've ever heard.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm glad you think that. I mean, that means we pretty much did what we were supposed to do with it, too, when it was put together and we spoke to the Frontiers people and they, came up with the lines and everything and spoke to me. It's like, well, we kind of want it to sound like this, and I went home and wrote and got together with Ripper and Roy, and that's where everything wound up. So we didn't sit there and specifically only take songs that we thought were going to be ones that would be liked for those fans, but the writing had a focus, and that wound up working out well in the end for us. I think we've got a really cool album.
Sure. Now, how did the band itself come together? Is this one of these Serafino Puppet Master things, or were you guys all friends that wanted to work together, or a little of both, or what?
Well, I mean, I've been approached by people to do these type of things for years and years and years, and I always had said no, but I've known Ripper for over 20 years. He's one of my best friends, and we worked together on his solo records, and I toured with him as a guitar player for that in Europe, opening up for Heaven and Hell, and I did, some other stuff with him. So for me, I've always wanted to do a record with him. That's something we'd always spoke about. So when the opportunity to do that album was presented in the form of one of those records, it was, for me, it was a win-win. It's like I was able to do a record with my friend, and I knew of the other guys that are playing in the band, but they weren't, people that I'd really worked with before or, hung out with before. So it was great to be able to have those guys involved in my life as musicians and people too, because they're both such great you know, people of what they do, but they're also really great people. So I was happy of the lineup with this. I mean, a lot of times when you get put together with people that you never worked with before, you never know how it's going to work out. But these guys, they were just really super cool. And I just think the band's got a different energy than a lot of the things that are put together.
Sure. That
have been out there. I mean, there's a lot of good things. I mean, you'll hear things that people are putting together, and they mix up this band, they throw in that singer, and they write something that, you know, kind of you think you could hear what those bands used to do and this and that. But this one just seems to me like it has a little bit more of a butt kicking in it, you know,
right.
A little bit more personality.
No doubt, man. And I'm gonna make an assessment. You can tell me I'm dead wrong. That's fine. But I have to imagine for you, who is at your core is a metalhead, to get a little bit away from the more artistic side that you play, you know, obviously in TSO, but even to a lesser degree that you played with Savatage. You know, there was more of an artsy vibe to pretty much everything that you've done, sans your solo records, where this is just like raw metal, straightforward, to the point, 4/4 time, and as much guitar and vocal as you could have. I have to imagine that is refreshing to you to actually, after a long time of not doing that, to get back in the studio and do that.
Yeah, no, it felt really good for me to be doing that metal. And actually one of the things that really made me, not necessarily that I didn't want to do it again, but made me excited about that opportunity was when I had the chance to go out on the road with Metal Church for a month while their guitar player was healing from his retina problem with his eye. I mean, that was some of the most fun heavy metal music I'd ever stepped on stage and played. I mean, Kurt is just such a great writer for that exact thing, you know, just playing music that is fun and metal. And that's when I started writing. I was, you know, not necessarily thinking about writing Metal Church, but I was just thinking about writing music that was fun and metal, you know, and that's kind of what I did with it.
No doubt. Now, with Spirits of Fire, you also worked with one of my favorites, Roy Z. He's just got an incredible body of work, and he's really become known for getting the best out of guitarists. What do you feel like he maybe added, you know, to you as far as pulling more out than maybe you've seen in the past from yourself?
Well, I mean, I was always a huge fan of his, but never had a chance to work with him. So when he was thrown in to the basket as far as what was going to be putting this thing together, for me, I think the thing that sold me in completely was being, okay, and I get to do a record with Roy. And when he was sending me, you know, demos of some of the stuff, because he had written about 4 songs on this record. My dog is barking at you. When he had written the ones he did, he sent them over with some guitar solos on it. So I was listening to what it was that he did, and I was like, oh, wow, I have to play stuff that not only is good, but I have to play stuff that competes with what I just heard this guy do, because he's a great musician and writer, as well as, you know, being that producer and guy who records. He does all those other things so well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, to see what he did as a guitar player in his own writing, I was like, uh-oh, I've got a lot of work to do. So it was awesome to work with him. I think that he pretty much let me do what I wanted to do. And you know, more than anything, he really was into what I had sonically going on, and I let him hear some of the stuff I had for my solo record, and he wanted me to add more to the tracks that we were doing for the Spirits of Fire record to really make those guitar tracks go over the top. So most of the rhythm guitars on that album have 4 rhythm tracks on them. So It's like, normally, you know, if I'm doing something in the sense where I'm sending people my music, I'll just send them the 2 in stereo and they'll use them. And my solo records, I added a lot more things, and a lot of times I'd have the 4, and a lot of times with Savatage, I had the 4 records too. I mean, the 4 guitar tracks as well. So this was just something that he had heard and pushed out of me to make sure it happened for everything. So we had that wall going on. And he's just, like I said, he's a great ear. He's a great artist. He's a lot of fun. He's one of the funniest people I've ever worked with in my life. So he was a great part of getting me really excited to get this thing to where it was.
Sure. Do you think that because you have had so many opportunities with all of your projects really to work with so many great guitarists that it lends you to actually listen a little bit more than a lot of people that, you know, they're the lone guitarist in their band and they don't take any direction from anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of what I've learned throughout my career, and especially that just came from, you know, the beginning when I entered into Savatage. It's like I was backing up Chris Oliva, and he was teaching me how to play, and I was learning what it was like to be, you know, somebody's rhythm player and somebody's
Sure.
supporter. And for me, there was no other person in the world that you'd be more proud of standing and listening to play than Chris. And when I got to play in that band, it opened him up. I mean, live, he was able to throw leads and licks and fills all over those songs because my guitar was laying down the rhythm underneath when he dropped out. And those records had a lot of guitars on them. You know, when Paul started producing Savatage, he really added a lot of layers onto those records in the studio, and that was something that that adding me into that band helped bring out to them live.
Sure, definitely, man. Well, let's move back to Spirits and Fire, Chris. Tim obviously is in, 500 projects or so at any given time.
I don't even know what record he has out coming out anymore. I look at it every day. It's just like, new record coming out with Tim Owens. I'm like, well, it's probably not mine because they announced that one last week.
Right. It is really insane how busy. You know, I mean, he's a tremendous musician. He's a personal friend too. So, you know, I love Tim to death.
He's probably the strongest voice that I've worked with as far as somebody who could just sing constantly. When Savatage opened up for Priest, we were out there with them, I forget how long it was, maybe 6 weeks. And we were doing at least six shows a week with that. And he was up there doing that Halford set every single night, all the way through with perfect. And I was just like, wow, this guy is a machine. And he's just like that. And he can sing anything. I watched him do, you know, a Dio Disciples show in last summer. And you just listen to him sing all of Ronnie's stuff, because a lot of times there'd be two vocalists at those shows. And this was one that was just him. And he just went through every era that Ronnie had sang, and every song and every note, and it was just like, you know, you closing your eyes and listening to Dio. The guy's voice is just incredible. So
Sure.
I mean, he's blessed. He has a great voice, and he's got, you know, the whole world wants to be able to have a Ripper Owens thing on their album. So it's great for him. I'm happy that he's able to stay that busy. I'm just going to have to kidnap him and make sure that we get some shows done with this thing as well. So it's like, I'm going to stick a freaking burlap bag over his head and hide him and stick him on the road. So
does it make it easier for you to write knowing how wide range his vocal is, that, you know, you don't have to write to a key necessarily to write something that Tim can do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you knew that everything you had, he was going to be able to sing, and then he was also going to throw on the Ripper Owens
Sure.
end to that, you know, his ability to throw in, you know, the notes that only he could do. So it was fun, and it's fun to listen to the record. I a lot of times when I have albums that I've spent a lot of time on, you listen to it, you get it mixed, and you didn't want to hear it for 6 months, but with this one, it's not like that. I love driving around with the music and listening to it. It's just a fun metal album.
Sure. Now you mentioned that you're going to be you're looking to get some shows together somewhere in here. You know, has any of the plans started coming together, or is that still a ways away?
I think that's a matter of us getting around and seeing what everybody has on this year, when we can fit them in. And I'd also like to see if there was, you know, maybe some festivals, you know, Steve or Rimmon with their respect bands that maybe we could add someday before or a day after. So, getting on one of those things to make it easier with, as far as people traveling. I'm just waiting to see what the schedule, and, you know, amongst things, I'm just waiting to see what people think of them. I mean, it's not that people have heard songs, so I want to get there and have a chance for people to go, oh, I really like this record. And that's me would make me happy.
Excellent. Well, Chris, the name of the album is Spirits of Fire. That is also the name of the band. And as a tradition on the show, and you've done this before, man, why don't you pick a closing track from the record and maybe give us a short story about it to wrap the interview up?
Well, I mean, since that's not one of the ones that we put out, I think you could use the song Spirits of Fire that wound up being the title track and the band name. We didn't know what we were going to call this band. And I had written that song, and basically what the Spirits of Fire is, it's the most positive of the good spirits. You know, when the worst energy of evil comes around, they would send to the Spirits of Fire to kick its butt, you know, and that's basically what this band to me is you know, when the feeling of the heavy metal music I'm doing, it's just something that's going to be out there to have that real spirit of the heavy metal music we've done and the bands we've played in, and the souls of the ones that are with us and the ones that aren't. You know, it's a very meaningful name to me and a very meaningful song, and that's the one I'm picking.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is Spirits of Fire right here on your Classic Metal Show.